Hi, it's Leong again. You're back in body prep. These guitars have basically left us, gone to assembly. They've had necks put on, assembled necks with fingerboards and frets put on. We're now going to final sand this, where it's basically the final gateway before paint shop. We're going to clean these things up, get any little scuffs and imperfections out, so they're pretty much looking perfect before it gets a coat of paint. First thing I'll do is give it a little bit of a look over, well, quite a thorough look over, and I'll be using as much light as I can to pick out any imperfections. Anything I find on the way, I'll probably just mark out, make my life easier so I can know it, I can fix them up. This current guitar we have is an Aussie, an EA80C. It's got a flamed blackwood, solid back and sides. It's a really nice thing, pretty popular. These things are selling like hotcakes. Okay, before I actually start sanding, I'm just gonna fill up any tiny little gaps which I found. The intricate rosettes tend to be a bit infamous for getting gaps, but this one doesn't seem particularly bad. So I started with the perimeter of the guitar, just making sure that all the binding is down flush with the rest of the back. After stroking the back, I'm just gonna stick on this tungsten light to just give me a little better view of if I've taken everything out that I wanted to. Under this light, any imperfection should probably pop out. That looks pretty good to me. So I think we might move back to my bench and we'll finish off by hand. As you might remember before we sent this to assembly, we gave it a really good sand with 150 grit. Assuming that things came back, you know, not too dinged up and all I should be doing is working now to 180, which is a finer grit. This will be the finest sand which we do before we sand it to paint shop. So I'm just going to go over those sides again, take out that little ding which I've spotted before, and now the little things that I found. Ideally, we'd like to sand the guitar as little as possible. Always keep in mind that when we're sanding one side, we're always taking material off, and the last thing I want to do is over sand and make the binding too thin. So I'll constantly be checking the sides, even though I'm sanding this side. Alright, so after I've given the sides a bit of a sand down, I'll give it a look over again after blowing it down, just to make sure I haven't missed anything. Alright, so the face is another large flat surface. Unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of using the stroke sander again because the neck's already on there. And if I went there, I'd pretty much tear the entire neck off, and you don't really want that. So here's my best friend here, the orbital sander. Give it a nice even coverage, just so I don't create any dips. Bling bling, here we are in the UV room. This stage is pretty important to a lot of the guitars we sand here. The reason we look at these guitars under UV light is just because it picks up things like glue, which we can't quite see under the natural light. So I've brought in little bits of masking tape, which you can see. I'm just going to use them as markers. Anything which I sort of see which is a little bit suspicious, like these, a little bit of glue, they're just going to pop out. So now that's essentially finished. One last thing I'm going to do, as confident as I am that I did an awesome job on this, I'm still going to palm it off to one of my team members to give just a second pair of eyes. So by the time it gets to paint, it's definitely perfect.